to tonight's episode of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and Black Power Blueprint web show. Tonight's episode is entitled Make America Indigenous Again, Victory to the Mexican People. And we want to start out by introducing who we are as the Uhuru Solidarity Movement with these weekly web shows. My name is Jamie Simpson, and I'm a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, which is the mass organizational front of the African People's Solidarity Committee, an organization founded by and working under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, which was formed, the African People's Solidarity Committee, in 1976, so that white people could come into the fold of the African Revolution and struggle within our own ranks of the white community and insert the African Revolution into the white community with the demand for reparations as the only genuine way for white people to stand in material solidarity with African liberation and self-determination. So that is what we represent, and we work under the leader, and we want to salute our leadership of the African People's Socialist Party and Chairman Omali Yeshitela, without whom Uhuru Chairman Omali Yeshitela. This is an amazing revolutionary theoretician and revolutionary organizer who for 50 years has struggled for the unification and liberation of Africa and African people under the leadership of the African working class and poor peasantry. And without his leadership and vision, the Solidarity Committee, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement would not exist. We would not be here tonight. And we also want to put forward and deeply salute Deputy Chair Ona Zene Yeshitela with Uhuru. Deputy Chair is the on-the-ground visionary leader of the economic work of the African People's Socialist Party, the nonprofits like the Black Power Blueprint, and she does the day-to-day work of maintaining these projects and the visionary work of leading them forward. So we want to, again, welcome everyone who is tuned in to the Uhuru Solidarity Movement Live. We have a fantastic program tonight, and we want to welcome our special guest from Unión del Barrio, Benjamín Prado. He is the Undersecretary of Unión del Barrio, and he's joining us from California. Welcome, compañero Benjamín.
Uhuru, thank you very much for having us on. It's always a pleasure to work and struggle with the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement.
Uhuru, it is an honor and a privilege to have you on the air with us tonight, comrade. And we also with us is my co-host and leadership, the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. He is also a member of the Central Committee of the African People's Solidarity Committee, Jesse Neville.
Uhuru Jamie. I want to salute Jamie Simpson, who is the perennial voice of solidarity with Black Power here on the Uhuru Solidarity Movement web shows. And I want to join in saluting the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Deputy Chair Ona Zene Yeshitela, and the entire Central Committee and general membership of the African People's Socialist Party. And I also want to extend a deep salute and appreciation to our powerful guest, Undersecretary Benjamín Prado. It's an extreme honor to have you on this program, and I'm very excited, as well as everyone in the movement who is tuning in tonight, to hear your analysis and the analysis of Unión del Barrio on everything that's happening in the world right now, including as it relates to the struggle of the Mexican people, the indigenous people of this land. I also want to salute Chairwoman Penny Hess and give a round of applause for Chairwoman Penny Hess.
Yes.
Penny is the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, the organization, as you mentioned, Jamie, that was formed in 1976 by the chairman, by the party, to extend the African Revolution into the oppressor nation, into white society, and in the form of building a movement for reparations to African people. And nobody has embodied that stance so consistently and in such a powerful way as Penny Hess has since 1976, when she came to the very first conference where the party founded the African People's Solidarity Committee. So we salute Chairwoman Penny, who is in St. Louis and who leads the Black Power Blueprint Reparations campaign, of which this web show tonight is a part, under the leadership of Deputy Chair Ona Zene Yeshitela. Before we jump into our program, I want to really state on behalf of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement that as an organization of white people under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, we fully unite with the position of the party and the Uhuru movement that reparations are owed to African people for the centuries-long ongoing theft of resources, labor, and land and life from African people, as well as reparations for the genocide of the indigenous people of this land and the theft of their land. And we want to say up front, as we said in our title of this event, Make America Indigenous Again, that this land does not belong to us white people, that we are the illegal aliens who came here and took this land at gunpoint and slaughtered the indigenous people and created a colonial settler state for our own benefit on this stolen land, and based on an economy built from the stolen labor of African people, and that this land must go back into the hands of the indigenous people. And there can be no compromise on that question, and white people must stand in unconditional solidarity with African people and their struggle for national liberation, and with the indigenous people, as Unión del Barrio's platform says, from Chile to Alaska, who are fighting to unite indigenous people and to take back their land. So we just wanted to make that statement right up front, and deeply appreciate the opportunity that we have to go deeper into this question and what it means for us in this interview tonight with Undersecretary Benjamín Prado.
Uhuru, thank you for that, Chair Jesse Neville. I deeply unite with that and salute you for putting that forward. I wanted to also say that we're honored to be able to speak with Benjamín to give us analysis from Unión del Barrio of what's really going on with indigenous people, with so-called Latino people, Mexican people, what's happened recently in Bolivia,
yes,
in particular, which reminds us of some events in Chile from the 70s.
Yep.
And before we get into all that, we want to state from the get-go that before we start this interview, we want you all to know that our goal tonight is to put our money where our mouths are and make $1,000. We intend to raise $1,000 toward the Black Power Blueprint tonight. And if you have been not joining us on a regular basis, or this is your first time watching the Uhuru Solidarity Movement web show, Black Power Blueprint is a self-determination program of Black Star Industries and the African People's Education and Defense Fund, building political and economic power in the hands of the African working class. And it is headquartered at the Uhuru House at 4101 West Florissant Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri. And through purchasing properties and renovating or demolishing abandoned buildings, this project is creating beautiful, usable cultural and political hubs, economic incubators, and community spaces. Since our last web show, there have been incredible strides already with the construction of the One Africa, One Nation outdoor marketplace and event space. The African People's Education and Defense Fund partnered with the amazing workers of Paradigm Construction, who successfully excavated the ground, dug deep trenches, and poured concrete to construct a pathway for the marketplace, as well as a stage and platform. The trenches passed inspection for the footing of the stage. And a few days later, the Black Power Blueprint organizers and volunteers picked up thousands of pounds of antique wrought iron fencing from a seller turned supporter in St. Anne. And after working together to load it in a rental van and trailer lent by our volunteer, Mr. Gary Brooks, they transferred it to their partners at Paradigm Builders in their warehouse in North St. Louis, and Paradigm will be fabricating the fencing and installing it around the marketplace. So that is a real victory for the Black Power Blueprint, a real move forward.
Yes.
And this characterizes the way that the Black Power Blueprint has moved in the community, which is making all of these friendships and relationships with organizations and individuals in the community. And most recently, Side Lot Farms was contracted to install the permeable paving. And permeable pavers, okay, what is that? So those are bricks that soak in water efficiently and allow for rainwater to be absorbed into the ground. It's a brilliant concept, isn't it? So that you don't get this. And what does that do, Jesse? What that does is it prevents large amounts of rain from running off into the sewers and from overburdening the sewage system, right? And this is critical, as we know very well here in St. Petersburg, for a sustainable environment. Would you like to speak to that issue, Mr. Former mayoral candidate Jesse Neville?
Not exactly, other than to say I totally unite that clearly the Black community, the Black working class, and the Black Power Blueprint is doing more to address the sewage problems in St. Louis than the white reactionary St. Pete government has done in the last 50 years.
Yeah.
So that is a statement to the power of the African working class and the power of African self-determination to solve every problem that we
Yes.
face.
And it is a problem here in St. Petersburg, as it is a problem throughout North America in its current borders. So you can check out pictures and videos on the progress that you can see for yourself when you make your donations. And this space will soon be a beautiful destination in the African community, which is constantly being attacked and starved out of its own resources. So that is why tonight we're committing to raise $1,000 in reparations to support the goals of this project. And if you want to help us get a head start on that, you can go to blackpowerblueprint.org and donate now. And we want to start by thanking our comrades Jackson and Ali Ayello, who gave $10 each, and that means we only have $980 to go, and we know we can do that. So thank you, and Uhuru, Jackson, and Ali. Uhuru. So again, that is blackpowerblueprint.org. Keep that in mind. That's the site you can go to both to donate and to see pictures of the progress that was just discussed. And without further ado, I want to turn it over to Comrade Jesse Neville and Undersecretary Benjamín Prado.
Okay, so let's dive right in. This is the moment that everyone is waiting for and that people tuned in for tonight. So just want to once again appreciate Undersecretary Benjamín Prado for being on the program tonight and for representing an incredible leading revolutionary Mexican indigenous organization by the name of Unión del Barrio. And we wanted to start by asking if you could tell us a little bit about Unión del Barrio. For people who have not heard of it, what is it? What is a little bit of its history, its mission, and its goals in the world today?
All right. First of all, Uhuru, thank you to the African People Solidarity Committee, Jesse, Jamie, and we unite 100% with the Black Power Blueprint and the political position of reparations. Unión del Barrio is a political organization. It's an independent political organization operating with a 100% volunteer membership base, entirely self-financed through our membership dues, community contributions, and local fundraising. We've dedicated ourselves to struggle on behalf of the indigenous Mexican, Latin American peoples of this continent living within the current political borders of the United States. Unión del Barrio was born in 1981. It came as a consequence of the Chicano power movement of the 1960s and 1970s. Veterans of that movement, that political movement of the 1960s and 1970s, came together in 1981 after the political defeat, the military defeat of the Chicano power movement, where we saw our Mexicans upholding our right to self-determination, of upholding our right as indigenous people to be on our own land. And unfortunately, the COINTELPRO type of repression that came down during the 1960s and 1970s to quash any political movement for revolution within the political empire saw a political defeat in the creation and formation of all these Hispanic groups that then joined the Democratic Party, and also what we saw in terms of the military defeat with people being assassinated, people being incarcerated, just like the Black Panthers were during the 1960s and 1970s. So was our political movement and organizations destroyed. And so Unión del Barrio was born from the struggles of the 1960s, 1970s by veterans of the Chicano power movement, and uphold and brought forward the struggle to continue to struggle for our land as indigenous peoples, to advance the politic of self-determination, which can be defined in 5 central points. One being the collective interpretation of our history, challenging the U.S. monopoly of understanding history and through the falsification of our history through the textbooks that we see in the colonial school system. Second is to control our economic destiny by taking back our labor and organizing ourselves as working people to wage class struggle. Number 3, advance our social development by self-directing our culture, our education, and our language. meaning, again, taking away the ability of the colonial school system to determine who we are, but in fact, creating culture as forms of resistance to settler colonial oppression. Number 4, independently developing the content and character and direction of our political orientation, that we have to see beyond the two-party dictatorship that exists in this country, where the political discussions are only interpreted between liberal and conservative, but we see our politic as a revolutionary politic, a politic of class struggle, of self-determination. And, number 5 is controlling the political institutions that make the laws that govern us. We know that the colonial system, everything from its legal, its executive, and its judicial apparatus is a colonial settler state that has invaded us, that has ripped off our resources, that has exploited our labor, that keeps a disproportionate number of our people in these concentration camps known as prisons. And for us, it's important to begin a political process of building and creating what we have identified as dual and contending power, as well as the community-level self-defense of our people, of our communities, and to be part and form part of a political process that has already begun in the South of building continental unity with comrades throughout this entire hemisphere to build socialism. And so that is the objective of Unión del Barrio, is to build, again, dual and contending power, community-level self-defense, and building continental unity with people that have already decided that capitalism as an economic political system is rotten. It was born off of the genocide of our peoples and the enslavement of African people as well. And so we reject that economic system, and we want to build an alternative system that first and foremost places people and human beings at the center of our society. So that's who we are in a general way, the history of who we are as an organization.
Thank you so much for that. That was very helpful to understand the history and also the platform and the line of Unión del Barrio. So thank you so much for that. And the next question speaks to the relationship between Unión del Barrio and the African People's Socialist Party, and by extension, the relationship between the Mexican liberation struggle and the African liberation struggle. And anyone who was present at the 7th Congress of the African People's Socialist Party would have been extremely moved and struck, as I was, by the incredibly powerful display of unity that was shown between Unión del Barrio and between the African People's Socialist Party, where the red, black, and green flag and the flag of the Mexican people were flown together as banners of national liberation and in unity in the struggle against imperialism. Could you speak to the history of that relationship and why that relationship has been so important to Unión del Barrio for so many years?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we gotta definitely recognize the historic role that the African People's Socialist Party has played, not only for the African people, but also for our liberation struggle as well. We learned tremendously ideologically, politically from the struggle of the African People's Socialist Party, of the African liberation movement. We were tremendously grateful for what APSP represents in terms of identifying and lending clarity to who our real enemy is, right? For Unión del Barrio, we share now going on a 30-year relationship with the African People's Socialist Party since 1986, and that's as a result of some of our founding members, Ernesto Bustillos in particular, who came into contact with the Burning Spear, identified many of the concepts and ideas that were the primary enemies of our own community, and being able to establish that genuine African-Mexican liberation unity and build, our struggles collectively over time. And for us, it's we unite with the political ideas of the African People's Socialist Party, and in fact, for all intents and purposes, we see our struggle as the same struggle. Different fronts. At this point in history, it is necessary for us to really concentrate and look at the indigenous Mexican people's liberation struggle and focus concretely on the cultural, political realities that our people face. But at the end of the day, our enemy is the same: capitalism, colonialism, this sick imperialist system must go. And the only way that we're going to be able to get rid of it is if we unite politically, ideologically with those peoples, whether it be African, Asian, whether it be people from the Pacific Islanders, whoever you can unite politically and ideologically against our common enemy. So we have a deep, profound appreciation, and as well as a political unity, an alliance that we need to continue to build and uphold.
Uhuru, thank you for that powerful response, Comrade Prado. And we're doing this interview right now around at the time of a colonial holiday, especially in the white community, of Thanksgiving. And we specifically want to challenge the white nationalist mythology and narrative of Thanksgiving as a peaceful tradition between Europeans and indigenous people. Could you speak to that myth?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important that during this time, especially as indigenous peoples, we retake and reclaim, our history, because we know that there is a deep distortion among society that somehow want to make it seem as though there was some form of peace between indigenous people and the white community, right? The reality is that we have more than 520 plus years of colonial oppression, those more than 500 years of resistance as well. And that resistance is rooted in this sick parasitic system known as capitalism. And there's a reason why, after Thanksgiving, we consider it Thanksgiving, because they took everything from us, but not much of a thank you, right? We resist that oppression. But there's a reason why the next day, after eating and enjoying all the food that really indigenous people taught many white people as they were dying, getting here to North America, why they have these sales, right, to promote and continue to advance this capitalist consuming culture in the United States. And there is a serious contention in terms of our ability as indigenous peoples, as Mexicans, and all of humanity as a whole, our ability to exist and reproduce our existence, because capitalism is killing off a large number of our population, still even more than 520 some years since the establishment of, since Columbus came and ripped off a lot of our natural resources and even enslaved many of our people. And, today we see that contention, that resistance concentrated in this contention of between what we consider, the South, coming from the struggles of indigenous peoples in the South and the U.S. Imperialist machine, right? There's this contention of worldviews that is being contested right now, and it's concentrated now, and it's expressed today in the overthrow of our Bolivian brother Evo Morales, AIMA, and the Movimiento al Socialismo in Bolivia. That struggle is for natural resources. That struggle is for our labor. The struggle is for creating a better world based on our own labor, and not the extraction and exploitation of our labor and our natural resources, which the United States and the entire system of capitalism depends on this extraction of not only natural resources, but also the exploitation of our labor. And if we see, over time, before there was even the United States, before there was even considered this continent of the Americas, there was other names given to this territory. Avia Yala, Anahuac, for example, and even in the English language translation known as Turtle Island, right? So we had our own understanding of the world based on the material realities of our existence, which were abundant, and our indigenous native nations always shared what we had. We even didn't even have a concept of private property. That's why it's interesting how even U.S. society attempts to really attack our native brothers and sisters in what was known as Manhattan, right? Our native brothers and sisters there, and criticizing, almost calling us dumb for selling, quote unquote, this massive, huge piece of land to white people, right? When the reality is that we had no concept of private property. It was always communal. So when there's all these treaties that go back and forth, there was that happened as a result of expansion, of U.S. imperialist expansion throughout the continent. There's a violation, a systemic violation of all these treaties that were really pacts of genocide against Native nations. But at the core of it is the fact that there's a system that exists that creates land into private property, a concept that, again, our native nations did not understand in terms of what of that sick parasitic system that today has established itself. So it's really important to uphold these concepts that our indigenous brothers and sisters and cousins have always had in viewing the world, and really challenge the ability of this capitalist system to continue to extract massive amounts of wealth at our expense.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. This is an interview for people who might just be tuning in. You're listening to Undersecretary of Unión del Barrio, Benjamín Prado, speaking to us here on the web show of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, which is being held under the theme, Make America Indigenous Again, Victory to the Mexican People. And we are greatly honored to be joined by Benjamín Prado. And my name is Jesse. I'm here with Jamie.
Uhuru.
We want to appreciate everybody who's tuning in. And I want to just take a quick moment to appreciate the people who have contributed tonight towards the $1,000 goal to raise resources for the Black Power Blueprint Economic Self-Determination Program of the African Working Class headquartered in St. Louis. I want to again appreciate Jackson Hollingsworth and Ali Ayello, who each put in $10 before the program even got started. Allison Haney in Philadelphia, who's the Secretary General of the African People's Solidarity Committee, put in $25. And Janice Kant, who is a longtime member of the African People's Solidarity Committee, who's located here in St. Pete, put in $50. So let's give them a round of applause. And I just want to say that we have $905 left to raise tonight, and I feel very confident that all of us who are listening to this incredible interview with Benjamín Prado will feel motivated to go ahead and contribute reparations to the Black Power Blueprint. This is something concretely that we can do to stand with African people and with indigenous people and all oppressed peoples around the world. And without any further ado, we want to return to our powerful interview with Benjamín Prado. And you mentioned, Undersecretary Benjamín, you mentioned Bolivia. And of course, the news was recently abuzz with the events in Bolivia where Evo Morales, who was the first indigenous person to be elected president of a majority indigenous country called Bolivia, was forced to resign by what was clearly a U.S. imperialist-backed military coup after he was reelected with a popular vote into his role as the presidency. And of course, the United States government is slandering him, and all of the imperialist forces of the world have lined up against him. And the person from the opposition who declared herself the new president of Bolivia was immediately recognized by the United States government and other imperial powers. So this is happening in Bolivia. Of course, the escalation of warfare against the people of Venezuela in an attempt to undermine the Maduro government there continues to rage constantly. in that part of the world, and at the same time, the U.S. is just creating war and havoc all over the Middle East, and as well as against African and indigenous people inside this country. What is your summation and the summation of Unión do Barrio of what happened in Bolivia and the way forward?
Yeah, first of all, it's very precise that you do recognize, right? Say that it was a political and military coup. That first and foremost, the United States was behind this overthrow, the political and military overthrow of Evo Morales. Important to recognize that Calimán, who is the general who suggested, quote unquote, for Evo Morales to resign, was a member or participant of the Bolivian military that had training in the School of the Americas in Fort Benning, Georgia.
Yep.
So it's really important to recognize that it was thought of, conceived of, and carried out by the United States.
Yep.
And there's a reason for that, right? Number one, Evo Morales is the leader of the Movimiento al Socialismo party, the political party movement towards socialism that is a workers-based political party. Evo Morales was formed within the ranks of the trade union struggles of Bolivia, meaning it was a workers' struggle that brought him to the presidency. He worked as a union organizer for the coca workers, mainly what are considered the campesinos or the countryside workers, right? The mainly in the production of coca. And it's really important to clarify that we're not talking about cocaine here. We're talking about the natural leaf coca. It's a natural plant that is indigenous to the Andean region of Peru, Bolivia, and Brazil. And it's sacred to the indigenous population because of its healing characteristics. It only becomes cocaine when it's processed and all kinds of chemicals are put into it. But in its natural form, it's a plant. It's a plant that has many important characteristics to deal with issues of elevation, which if anybody has gone to Peru or Bolivia, the elevation is a major issue for anybody that comes from places that lower lying areas. And so it's an important coca. And I make that clarification because a lot of people who may hear that will say, well, there's some form of narco or narcotics dealing there. When the reality is that there was more drugs being produced before Evo came to power in 2006. And in fact, when he expelled the DEA in 2008, the coca production actually increased, not within Bolivia, but outside of Bolivia, meaning we have Colombia and other U.S. allies producing massive amounts of this substance, cocaine, but yet the coca production, meaning just the plant, was even considered an important healing remedy for much of the Bolivian population. So I think that's important to clarify. And he was attacked. Why? Because he joined the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Nuestra America in 2006 when he came to power. In fact, not only because he joined that alliance, which is an alliance of socialist governments throughout this hemisphere, but because he also nationalized Bolivia's oil and natural gas in 2006. In fact, on May 1st, right, International Workers' Day. And if you look at the pattern of reclaiming the natural resources for Bolivia, you see that there's also a correlation between improved standards of living in Bolivia. We can just take, the gross domestic product, which grew by 327% in the past 13 years. reaching an all-time high of 44,885,000,000 in 2018. And where did that GDP, where did most of that growth end up? It ended up in attacking poverty, reduced extreme poverty by half within one decade, from 38% in 2006 to 17% by 2017. It cut unemployment from 8.5% to just 4.2%, with 62% of the population enjoying a medium income considered middle class according to rural development standards. It increased the minimum wage from 440 bolivianos to 2,060 bolivianos, meaning $64 minimum wage per month before Evo became president to $298 a month over these past 14 years. And now concerning between 2007 and 2014, the Morales government increased healthcare and services 173%, even according to the World Health Organization, meaning 34 hospitals were built, 1,061 health centers constructed, and it invested in educational institutions, building 1,206 educational institutions within that time. It increased life expectancy from 64 to 71 years of age. And so these social improvements as a result of reclaiming Bolivia's natural resources was viewed upon by the minority settler population of European descent as something that cannot go, that they cannot allow. And they conspired with the international oligarchies in the South, getting a green light from the Organization of American States, saying that the elections were fraudulent when there's absolutely no evidence that that is the case, and getting the green light from their masters in the White House, right? This ultra-reactionary, right-wing, religious fundamentalist groups and organizations in Bolivia, who are a very small minority, less than 30% of the population, then conspired to overthrow Evo Morales precisely because he did and was able to beat them in the polling place, right? He was able to gain significant amount of support because of the social focus of his presidency and because of his internationalism with other countries that form part of the Bolivarian Alliance of the Peoples of Nuestra America. In fact, today or yesterday, this imposter, right, this Janine Áñez, in fact, said that Bolivia would pull out of the Bolivarian Alliance of the Peoples of Nuestra America, and started attacking the Cuban doctors, the Cuban mission, where you have more than 700 doctors in Bolivia attending to the most marginalized sectors in Bolivia, were arrested, and they were attacked, and they had to now pull out as a medical mission. And so all those elements, if you look at what any country, when they decide to take over the resources, to start developing their economy, in fact, Bolivia was considered the most advanced economy because it has begun to even get rid of its external debt, and by getting rid of its external debt, the IMF, the World Bank, and all those multinational corporations could not easily just go in and steal Bolivia's resources. And that's the reason why that the coup took place to remove a president that was actually doing a lot of good for its population.
Uhuru. Thank you so much, Undersecretary Benjamín Prado, for your insight on these issues, and I think in particular those specific statistics like the raising of the life expectancy, the minimum wage going up under Morales's leadership. We know what entities would be opposed to the indigenous and working class people of Bolivia making those gains. It's a parasitic entity. So we really appreciate your clarity on that. And before we go on we have a couple last questions, we want to just briefly pause and check in to see if there is anyone else to thank.
Yes, well, I just want to salute the statement from Undersecretary Benjamín Prado. Really appreciate the analysis, and of course, declare our solidarity from the Uhuru Solidarity Movement with the people of Bolivia, with the indigenous people, and with all struggling colonized and exploited peoples throughout Latin America and throughout the world. And just say that imperialism must go, it must be defeated, it must be destroyed. And I really want to also salute the recent viral video from Chairman Amalia Shatella that he put out right after the coup against Evo Morales, and just the call that he made that for all of us that that the response to this needs to go beyond just protesting, but to really build organization. And for us in the Solidarity Movement, that means build reparations.
Right.
That's the most significant thing that we can do to oppose what's happening in Bolivia, is build the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, build solidarity with the African Revolution, which by extension forwards the world revolution of all colonized and oppressed peoples fighting for national liberation and for real socialism, which can only come about when the foundation upon which capitalism was built is destroyed. And that will be led by the colonized African working class and colonized working people of the world. So that's really important for us to understand, and I just so much appreciate the leadership of Unión del Barrio and the African People's Socialist Party, and the role that we have as white people in working under the leadership of colonized, the anti-colonial struggle, and taking that struggle into our own white communities. Indeed. And I want to salute others who feel the same way that I do, which includes Chairwoman Penny Hess, the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, who put in $25. We want to salute Chairwoman Penny Hess. Thank you so much.
Chairwoman.
I also just want to appreciate the analysis of the whole coca farming situation, and the slander that they try to say that it's narco terrorism or whatever, narco funding or that kind of thing. And because they did slander Morales by saying he's basically funded by that. And they say the same thing about, national liberation struggles or guerrilla movements in Colombia and other places. They try to say that they're narco terrorist groups, and like the biggest narco terrorist organization on the planet Earth is the CIA and the US government.
And the DEA itself.
There you go. Who are the ones that push drugs on colonized people, that exploit the resources, that turn something like coca leaves that are sacred to indigenous people into cocaine.
Yeah.
And that went into Afghanistan, and after the Taliban had outlawed opium production for years, the U.S. government goes in, and all of a sudden opium production skyrockets when they overthrow that government. Like this is what the U.S. government is all about. So this is imperialism. It's part of how imperialism got to be, was through slavery, genocide, rape, pillage, and drugs. Like that's part of its DNA, and it's just offensive that they would use that lie and that slander against colonized and oppressed people. So I just wanted to throw that in there, and really appreciate the summation that you gave on that. And so Jamie, I'll turn it over to you.
I fully unite, and I'd like to also enter my own contribution to this and donate $20 tonight to the Black Power Blueprint. And Uhuru, encourage anyone else out there who's watching, if you haven't had a chance yet, go to blackpowerblueprint.org, because as Jesse was saying, it's on us to build the dual and contending power institutions of the African working class, support the struggle of the indigenous peoples within these borders, because we can't depend. I mean, we support the revolutions happening throughout the world, but at the end of the day, we're here within current U.S. borders, and we've got to do our work to get reparations to African people within U.S. borders, and to return the land to the indigenous people right here. There is a revolutionary movement afoot. It did not end with Evo Morales. It continues. And we got to be very conscious of that. So again, you can go to blackpowerblueprint.org if you're another person who supports dual and contending power in the hands of the African working class, and contribute generously. We're on the line again with Comrade Benjamín Prado, Undersecretary of Unión del Barrio, and we have just a few more questions for you. First of all, we wanted to ask, what is the position of Unión del Barrio on the right of indigenous people to this land?
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's really important to recognize, that we have a settler colonial state and a settler colonial government, and that this land is still indigenous people's land. Going back again, to our own conceptions of natural resources, it does not belong to any one individual, and we know that. In fact, Evo Morales made this very clear, right? That there's these grotesque inequalities that exist within our society and the world, so grotesque that it must be abolished and eliminated. The system of capitalism, where 26 individuals have more wealth than more than half of humanity. That's more than 3.8 billion people, right? And when you have that type of grotesque parasitic relationship, we need to get rid of all those that minority systems that is attacking us. And so the question for us is a land question, because it's impossible that 4% of the world's population continue to consume more than 35% of the world's natural resources in this political, economic, social project known as the United States of America. It has become and has been ever since the arrival of Europeans a process of theft, right? That can only be done through genocide. And there's a reason why you look at the dollar bills and the monetary system that we see. They uphold these genocidal maniacs, right? And they value, the system of value that we have. Andrew Jackson, particularly, is one of the worst genocidal maniacs that have existed on this, in this empire that exterminated millions of indigenous peoples, killed off entire indigenous nations in order to accumulate land for a settler population. And through its 9 phases of imperialist expansion under the doctrines of manifest destiny, today it expresses itself as American exceptionalism. It is this ideological manifestations of white power that continue to attack nations and peoples throughout the world. But its expansion can only come about as not as an expression of unity and solidarity with people, but in fact the opposite, right? Come through violence, war, occupation, and building of political borders that, for all intents and purposes, are what Chairman once said, right? The property lines, right? Yep. And we have a political border that was born from this invasion, war, and occupation that relegated and relegates us as Mexicanos, indigenous peoples, as foreigners on our own land. And that's why we continue to uphold our right as indigenous nations to continue to organize and take back our resources, because if we do not struggle for land, then how do we expect to feed ourselves, clothe ourselves, and create conditions for our existence that are not subject to this terrible colonial laws that say that we are some form of illegal or aliens? And for us, that's an affront to our human dignity. And so we reject all these colonial laws that attempt to relegate us as foreigners on our own land. And we say that we have a right, historical, natural, even economic right to be on our own land, to take back our land, and to create conditions that are dignified so that our people can produce our existence through the sweat of our brow, which we've done for many years, but many times our labor, we work usually for somebody else as opposed to working for our own interests and for our own necessities. So that's why the question of land is fundamental, and Barrio believes that we need to destroy and get rid of that political border that divides our peoples. That border should not exist. It was created by human beings, and human beings can also get rid of it.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru. Let's give that a round.
Thank you.
Yes.
Down with the borders.
Borders must go.
Yes.
That's right.
So we had just one last question, and I think I'm going to turn it over to Chair Jesse.
Well, once again, thank you so much for being on tonight. And the last question we wanted to ask you is, are there any actions or events that from Unión del Barrio that you wanted to announce, and how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're going to be having several events. The first one is tomorrow. We have our monthly political education discussion around the 109th anniversary of the Mexican Revolution, which for us is fundamentally important to understand, the evolution of that political struggle. It's really the first revolution in this entire continent. Of course, hijacked by a series of individuals and economic interests aligned with capitalism. But we're going to be holding our event tomorrow at our offices here in San Diego, Centro Aztlán, located at 2078 Logan Avenue, right across the street from the historic Chicano Park. We'll also be having a Raza Youth Liberation Conference on December 14th from 10 to 3 p.m. over at Lincoln High School at 4700 Imperial Avenue in San Diego. And next year we will be organizing 2020 against colonial terror, a campaign that will also commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Chicano moratorium in Los Angeles in August. So we're building towards that. And every day, it's people who are tired of all this colonial oppression with police, occupying armies, immigration authorities hunting us down and persecuting our working people. We encourage you all to get in contact with us to build political organization wherever we may be at, whether it be in the barrios, at our work sites, at our schools, hell, even in the prisons. We have prison projects that organize our community's self-defense. To contact us, whether it be through Facebook at Unión del Barrio, whether it be through telephone, you can call us 619-534-8675, or you can contact us online, info@uniondelbarrio.org, and contact us through our website, uniondelbarrio.org. And so there's many ways of getting involved and contributing to the struggle. One thing that I did want to mention, though, is that the struggle in Bolivia is not over.
Yeah.
Yes.
Evo Morales, even by the National Assembly, or what is known as the Plurinational Assembly, did not accept his resignation, neither that of the vice president. And they're the majority, even though there has been manipulation of the legislative process and takeover by the imposter Janine Áñez. And all the bourgeois media is reporting that she is, in fact, the official representative of Bolivia. The reality is that legislatively, Evo Morales, it is very possible and very likely that he will be recognized and be back in Bolivia relatively soon. So we are continuing to be in solidarity with the Bolivians and their political process there in order to ensure that this political coup is actually defeated.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
That's some optimistic news. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And thank you again, Undersecretary Benjamin Prado. It's been a great honor to have you on the program tonight. And thank you, as always. We've had you on before, and it's always an extremely insightful and powerful discussion. So we really appreciate you being with us on the program tonight.
And we thank you for inviting us, and we will always be willing and able to participate in these discussions. Thank you.
Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you to Undersecretary Benjamin Prado of Unión del Barrio. Uhuru, and long live Unión del Barrio.
Long live, and victory to the Mexican people, and victory to the people of Bolivia. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
So yeah, I just want to just appreciate that interview. That was extremely powerful, and I think that everybody agrees who's been watching tonight. And I also want to really make a call for us to go ahead and struggle to at least get to a milestone on the way towards our overall goal. We had a big goal tonight of $1,000. So far, we have raised, I'm getting a text message here, we've raised $155, so that's pretty good. I want to salute everybody for contributing. We just received another contribution from Ruby Gittleson of $25, so we appreciate that. And I'd like to see if we could go ahead and raise $300 total.
Yeah.
Do you think we can do that, James?
I think we can do that.
I feel very confident that we can do that. And I really want to urge everyone who's watching tonight to go to blackpowerblueprint.org to put in whatever you can, even if it's $5, it makes a difference. It makes a difference. And these resources are urgently needed. The work, if you go to blackpowerblueprint.org, you're going to see, scroll down, look through those slideshows, look at the vast work that is happening, massive expansion of this project that's happening in St. Louis that is just moving at a breakneck speed. Like every single day, they're laying down permeable, what is it? Pavement and bricklaying and wrought iron fences are being carried and put down. And, you know, the marketplace and the venue space and outdoor venue space and the garden, Mr. Gary Brooks Community Garden, all of this is happening. Meanwhile, the Uhuru movement, the Black Power Blueprint, is involved in laying the groundwork for a community commercial kitchen and continuing to build and update the beautiful Uhuru House Community Center. And just all of this is happening. I mean, it's so much more than just one project here or one project there. The way I see it, it's like the Uhuru movement is creating a revolutionary city in St. Louis. Like it's the birth of a whole new city that is not based on exploitation and oppression and all of the things that, you know, most cities in this country are built on. It's the emergence of an African working class city built on reparations and built on African self-determination. And it's an amazing thing to behold. I've been there. I've seen the projects with my own eyes. I've seen the 50-foot flagpole and the massive red, black, and green flag flying in the sky, and in school buses of African children slowing down and throwing their fists through the windows and cheering and screaming in joy at seeing the flag of the African nation flying above the extremely impoverished north side of St. Louis where the African community lives. So this is a beacon. This is a beacon of light, of hope, and of struggle that is happening right before our very eyes in St. Louis, and we have to be a part of it. This is reparations. It's not just a feel-good thing, making ourselves feel good, doing some little charity, posting something on Facebook and feeling like we've done our part. It's about material solidarity. Material solidarity. That means organizing in the white community, and it means the resources, making those resources available that are in our communities because of the type of thing that just happened in Bolivia, because of the type of thing that happened to the Mexican people that resulted in California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, etc., being part of the United States when just yesterday it was Mexican people's land. That's why we have the resources in our bank accounts that we can unleash into the revolution, into the struggle, by going to blackpowerblueprint.org and making a contribution tonight. So I'm getting a text message here from somebody in the studio audience named Jackson Hollingsworth about somebody else in the studio audience, Amanda Carlozzi, who is pledging $50.
All right, Amanda. Uhuru.
Now that's a studio audience.
Yes.
So, Jamie, you were going to say something.
Well, I wanted to ask you, Chair Jesse, because one of the things that makes the Black Power Blueprint different from your average charity or, here's a youth program here or there that is, it seems to me, nothing but window dressing for capitalism, something that, makes it look a little softer, a little gentler, a little nicer. But the Black Power Blueprint is exactly that. It is a blueprint, and there's a buzzword I want to make sure everyone watching understands, because Undersecretary of Unión del Barrio, Benjamín Prado, had mentioned that one of their 5 platform points was to build dual and power. Contending power. Can you talk a bit about what that means, dual and contending power?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I think it's extremely important for for us to understand the theoretical basis for the Black Power blueprint. And I promise I will talk about that, but first I will give you a total of how much we've raised.
Please.
We've raised $205.
All right.
And I'd like to go ahead and raise another $95 before we close out in the next 10 minutes, okay? We can do that. I feel confident that even if you've already donated, you want to see us make it to 300, you can go ahead and go to blackpowerblueprint.org and put in your contribution so we can reach at least $300 tonight. Okay, so let's talk about the theoretical basis for the Black Power blueprint. And by the way, there can be entire web shows about this topic. There have been entire web shows about this topic. We could do a 24-hour web show about this topic. Oh, we're going to, actually. We'll tell you about that a little bit later. But I want to just say, and the chairman has talked about this extensively in previous web shows and things that the Black Power Blueprint has done. So dual power is something that the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, Omali Yeshitela, introduced into the African liberation movement in this country going back to 1976, I believe it was. And he gave a presentation that was called the Tactics and Strategy for Black Liberation. And it was about the political aspects of building a mass movement. And this was, after the revolution of the 1960s had been crushed, right? So he is bringing theory and strategy and organization in an effort to rebuild and to complete the Black Revolution, which had been crushed in the 1960s. And one of the most influential and important concepts that he introduced was that of dual power. Now, dual power is something that was spoken about maybe in Russia or something in the 1910s, but in the context of the African liberation struggle in this country and applying it to the conditions of African people, the chairman brought that to the African liberation struggle. And you can see the influence of that in 1,000 different ways. You hear people now talking about dual power all the time. And dual power is based on the understanding that part of the struggle for revolution is that the party, as the leadership of the African working class and the leadership of oppressed peoples, isn't waiting for imperialism to die to start building the capacity of oppressed peoples to govern their own lives. While the party is involved in bringing down the vicious, blood-sucking social and economic system of parasitic capitalism, the party is also simultaneously in the process of building up its own self-determined, self-governing capacity in the form of political and economic institutions of self-government, in the form of an Uhuru House, where the people come to the Uhuru House. They come to a Quaba Hall, not to City Hall, when things are affecting them in the community. In the form of economic institutions that provide and that enable, empower the African working class to generate resources within the community, to have community commerce. So there's not just capital extraction going on, Walmart coming in, sucking resources out of the community, but the people are actually involved in stimulating independent economic activity that benefits the entire community. So this is happening while capitalism is still there. So there becomes a dual power situation where there is still white power exists, but now there's a black power that is emerging right under its nose. And the thing about dual power is that the chairman says these two things cannot coexist. That's why it's called dual and contending power, because dual power of the African working class is automatically anti-colonial.
Right.
Because white power requires the subjugation and economic exploitation and powerlessness of African people. So the moment that African people begin to take power, seize power in the form of the Black Power Blueprint and other programs like that, it fundamentally weakens the ability of white power to control and dominate the lives of African people, and is therefore just impossible to even quantify how significant that is in forwarding the struggle for the liberation of African people. So, and like the chairman says, dual power is temporary, because at the end of the day, one of the two sides is going to have to succumb to the other. And of course, we know which side is going to have to succumb. That's going to be the oppressor, imperialism. So this is what it's about. And, the chairman has written very eloquently and extensively on this topic, and you can read Vanguard, you can read An Uneasy Equilibrium. You should read those books if you haven't, to get a deeper understanding of the theory behind this project, because you can see it's tied to a long-term revolutionary strategy. That's what makes it so powerful right there in St. Louis, right here in St. Pete, and everywhere else where the party is building. In occupied Azania, in the UK, everywhere that the party is. And this has always been in the fabric of the African People's Socialist Party as an organization, is the strategy of building dual power. The elections that just happened here in St. Pete, that was dual power. I had the honor of working on that campaign of Director of Agitprop, Akile Anai, who is known for the ballot as Eartha Akile Kenyon. And the Uhuru movement acquired a campaign office in the heart of the South Side. Yeah. And people were coming to her and coming to the campaign and the campaign manager, Chimaranga Salambao, with their problems that they were facing in the community. They weren't going to the actual city council member. They were coming to the real people's representative, the person who really represented the interests of the African working class, and to her campaign headquarters, not to the city hall office of the person who's actually in power, because they're pulling the levers of white power, whereas Akile was there forwarding the interests of the community. So even that is an example of dual power. And you can see this all up and down, the work of the Uhuru movement. But anyway, great question.
So beautiful.
And it's something that we can and will be discussing at great length in the future, but we are running out of time, so that's why you should go to blackpowerblueprint.org and make your contribution. We are $95 away from our goal, and I haven't received a text message from Renee, who is calculating the numbers tonight, in the last 4 minutes that I've been talking. So I really want to urge you, if you're watching, I think that it's impossible to say no to this project. And the thing about the Black Power Blueprint is that if you put in $5, you'll see that $5 put into action tomorrow. Literally. Like, it's so fast moving, it's so fast paced that I can't even keep up. And I'm part of the funding campaign. I can't even keep up. I'm like, wait, this is okay, this is the market. Okay, so now they're building that. I'm like, oh my goodness. It's just an incredible thing to behold, and it's spectacular. So I really want to encourage people to go ahead, donate blackpowerblueprint.org, and get us to our new goal of $300 before we close out in the next few minutes. Jamie Simpson.
I think this is an amazing opportunity, especially for white people out there listening. If you know anything about your history, if you've read Overturning the Culture of Violence by Chairwoman Penny Hess, you know how many times we as white people have just collectively gone out and destroyed, demolished, murdered, mutilated any vibrant economic activity that African people have built here within current U.S. borders. You can take Rosewood right here in Florida as an example, where you had a thriving African town that was starting to do better economically than its neighboring white towns. And we saw what happened.
I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Please interrupt me.
I am so sorry to interrupt that statement, which I hope you will continue when I'm done interrupting. But I wanted to let you know, Jamie, that Renee Nassar did text me, and she texted me to let me know that she is going to put in $15 towards our goal.
All right.
So let's
Comrade Renee.
And those of you who are watching right now, in so many ways, you wouldn't be able to see us if not for the excellent technical proficiency of one Kyle Weiss, who is standing behind the camera right now, who is also putting in $10 towards the goal tonight.
Right,
so
Kyle.
That means we're 70 measly bucks away from our goal of $300 in reparations to the Black Power Blueprint. So let's make this happen.
Yes.
Blackpowerblueprint.org.
$35 2 times.
There you go.
Or $170.
And you were saying?
Well, just saying that this is, I think, our responsibility if we're going to stand in solidarity with the African working class, with colonized people, to support dual and contending power projects like the Black Power Blueprint because of our legacy of gathering together in droves to lynch African people, to burn down African centers of commerce, centers of independent economic activity. I'd mentioned Rosewood. You saw the same thing happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and in countless other places where the moment the African community had some semblance of dual and contending power, or just dual power, just any kind of economic power, white people were able to stroll in and through overwhelming violence and sadism just take that away, demolish it. And that African people have survived to this day is astounding. So we owe a self-criticism to the African community, to
Yes.
all colonized people, and this is how we do it. So I really want to salute every white person out there tonight who has taken that stand in material solidarity with the African Revolution, because it's ongoing. This what we saw in Bolivia. And I really want to unite with Comrade Benjamín Prado in stating that the struggle in Bolivia itself is not over.
Yes.
It goes on. And what Evo Morales and the indigenous comrades in Bolivia were able to create is an example of dual and contending power that had state power momentarily. So this is the long view that we take in this organization, and it starts with humble goals, like what is our adjusted goal for tonight that we're going to reach?
$300.
$300.
And
$300 for 600 years. That's
There you
not too bad for a Tuesday night.
There you go, Uhuru. And speaking of Tuesday nights, I want to switch into our announcement about a very important upcoming Tuesday night.
Please.
That I wanted to announce. And we're going to close out the show. We want to try to keep these programs to an hour and 20 minutes max. And we can't add much to the incredible statements and presentations made by our great guest, Undersecretary Benjamín Prado from Unión de Barrio. So without any further ado, I would like to go ahead and announce that we are in the process of building for an amazing, amazing campaign. Jamie, are you familiar with something called Giving Tuesday?
Why, yes, I am, Jesse.
Well, what's Giving Tuesday?
It is a day after Thanksgiving that people are...
Technically it is, yes.
The Tuesday following Thanksgiving.
There you go.
People like to give to charitable causes.
Right.
They like to give to causes that in some ways make them feel better about all the gluttonous indulging that can happen on Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. And we want to take that in a different direction.
You just reminded me. Okay, so sorry, I'm going to get back to that announcement in a second, but people may have heard of Black Friday. Well, we are having a Buy Black Power Friday on our Uhuru Solidarity's new online store, which is not ready to be announced yet. So spoiler that I'm even talking about it, but I'm not going to tell you the URL because you'll find out once it's ready. But I'm sure people saw the amazing Art for Reparations exhibit and auction that happened in Boston. Shout out to Hallie Murray and all the amazing comrades in Boston who made that happen. And you might have thought, man, I wish I could have gone to that and gotten some of that amazing artwork. Well, you are now able to do that starting on the weekend that we're talking about, Black Friday. There's going to be a big sale on our online store where you can purchase some of that art. And I am clearly filibustering right now because I'm getting more text messages. So I'd like to go ahead and thank Johan Bedingfield who put in $50.
Comrade Johan.
Okay, $20 more. And so if you want to stop the filibustering, you can go ahead and put in $20. Okay, but on a serious note, USM's main campaign from now until the end of the year is sort of a twist, a revolutionary twist on Giving Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Because we understand that really the resources are not ours to give, but ours to give back as reparations to African people. So this Giving Tuesday, we're having Reparations Tuesday.
All right.
And that is on December 3rd. And this is, as Jamie mentioned, it's a pre-existing thing. It's like a global holiday of giving to charities and things of that nature. So we're having a global day of solidarity, not charity. A global day of reparations. And we have a goal. We want to max out and raise over $30,000 to the work of the Black Power Blueprint on Reparations Tuesday, to contribute to the renovation of housing, to contribute to the African Independence Workforce Program, and so much else that's happening in St. Louis. So far, nearly 100 people have signed up to do Reparations Tuesday online Facebook fundraisers. So this is a very simple, and I've started to see some of them starting up already, which is great. This is a simple, easy way, without even leaving your bedroom or your basement, that you can contribute to Reparations Tuesday. And you just make a Facebook fundraiser, and you call your friends and family, you share it, and invite your friends and family and things of that nature, and all of a sudden, hundreds of dollars are being donated to your Facebook fundraiser. Now, on Reparations Tuesday, we're going to have a 24-hour telethon. Shout out to Casey Mackey, who's coordinating that. That is quite a momentous task, scaling a giant mountain on December 3rd, but we will all be climbing that mountain together here to the comrades in this room that are going to be part of the team of making that happen. And also shout out to Chairwoman Penny Hess, who will be on that telethon as well. And right. Jamie Simpson right here, your perennial host, who will be there for much of that telethon as well. So we're really excited about that. We have an amazing program. We're going to be doing a workshop on the culture of reparations. We're going to be doing a workshop called DJs for Reparations. Nice. So we have a number of DJs in the Uhuru Solidarity Movement who have done dance parties, raising resources for reparations to African people. And they're going to be talking about this emergent culture of reparations to African people. We're going to be playing revolutionary music. We're going to be talking about revolutionary art. We're going to be interviewing leaders of the African People's Socialist Party and the African People's Solidarity Committee. And we're going to be doing all of that for 24 hours, from 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. So it's going to be amazing. We want to encourage people to get involved. Sign up to do an online Facebook fundraiser. It is easy. It is simple. And it is a great way that you can be involved in a global day of reparations to African people. We want to generate a giant movement on that day. Mm-hmm. We want every time you go on Facebook, every time you go to the local cafe, you see posters, you see things on social media, you see the telethon, you see an event happening down the street, just a massive upsurge of reparations to African people happening on Reparations Tuesday, December 3rd, 2019.
It'd be amazing if this reached the point where every nonprofit in the world had to answer the question, what's your stance on reparations?
And that's what we need to make happen.
Absolutely. So that's Reparations Tuesday. You can get a Facebook. If you don't have a Facebook account, this is a reason to be on Facebook. Just for this event.
The only reason, really.
Yeah. And other fundraisers for USM, but in particular this one, Giving Tuesday.
Exactly.
So any other announcements?
I have no other announcements except that we will be doing a web show next week, next Tuesday, and that's going to be on current events. If you're like most of us and you read the news and you're like, what the hell is going on with Trump and the impeachment and Roger Stone? Did he die or something? And, what's happening? And Mormons are getting killed in Mexico. And, what is happening? Mormon colonizers. We'll help you understand what's going on, including the question of Bolivia. And you can have no better analyst than Penny Hess, who will bring the African internationalist point of view to the program next week to discuss all of these issues that are going on in the news so that you can go into work the next day and while you're at the water cooler with your colleagues, you can drop some African internationalist science about what's happening in the news. So,
beautiful. So
that's going to be great, and then we are also going to be doing a web show on the counterinsurgency and COINTELPRO and how both the FBI and the CIA had their own counterinsurgency programs against the African Liberation Movement. Most people don't know about the CIA's counterinsurgency program, which was called Chaos.
Wow.
So we're going to be talking about that. Penny Hess will be on that as well. And that's going to be an incredible program. So we want to encourage people to tune in and build for Reparations Tuesday and continue to build white reparations to African people and join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Go to uhurusolidarity.org, get involved, take the reparations challenge, organize in your city. We're going to be going on tour soon. We're going to be hitting the road, going to every city where we have members and contacts and building a massive movement from the ground up, fighting for reparations to African people in the U.S. and around the world. So join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Go to uhurusolidarity.org and be counted amongst the growing numbers of white people in this country, in London, in other places throughout the world who are saying that we don't want to be a part of this foul, disgusting U.S. imperialism anymore. No more genocide in our name. The African Liberation Movement is our leadership and our future too. Uhuru.
Uhuru. I'd like to quickly just salute you, Chair Jesse.
I want to salute you, Jamie Simpson.
And leadership. Thank you so much.
Uhuru.
And that concludes our web show. Thank you again to everyone who tuned in. Thank you to Undersecretary Benjamín Prado. Victory to Indigenous people.
Uhuru.
Victory to the Mexican people. Victory to African people. Forward to Reparations Tuesday. Reparations now.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Unity through
reparations.